सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्म पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः।
सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्मा पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः।
ॐ सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्मा पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः।
ॐ सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्मा पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः।
ॐ सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्मा पुरुषोत्तम भगवते नमः।
सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्मा पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः।
ॐ सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्मा पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः। सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्मा पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्म पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः।
सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्मा पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः।
ॐ सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्म पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः।
ॐ सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्मा पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः।
ॐ सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्म पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः। सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्म पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः।
सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्मा पुरुषोत्तम परमात्मा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः।
ॐ सच्चिदानन्द परब्रह्म पुरुषोत्तम पर अम्मा भगवान
जय श्री अम्मा
We have with us an ardent devotee of Sri Amma Bhagwan, the celebrated Dr. P. SaratChandra, Senior Professor at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, AIMS, New Delhi. With 25 years of experience and over 20,000 surgeries to his credit, as team leader and in charge of the Center of Excellence scientific papers. His area of research is neural mapping and brain connections in relation to human behavior and functions. His research projects and lectures in over 200 international conferences make him a foremost scientist of India who has served on several national and international bodies. He is a member of the Commission for Surgical Therapy for Developing Nations and fellow UCLA Los Angeles, besides being the editor Neurology India and executive member Indian Epilepsy Society and secretary Cerebrovascular Society. Has been the former president and president Skull-Based Society of India and former president Asian Epilepsy Surgery Society. His prolific academic career includes a number of publications, awards, grants, lectures, and patents. Today, Dr. P. SaratChandra's talk will focus on peace begins with food, a topic close to his heart. He will be talking on the intimate relationship between food, health, and the future survival of the ecosystem and our planet. तो चलिए अभी हम ये सेशन में मिलके पार्टिसिपेट करेंगे और डॉक्टर शरत चंद्र जी को ध्यान से सुनेंगे.
Yes, so I have unmuted. So you're able to hear me, Dasaji, now?
Yes, Saratji, you are audible.
Okay, namaste. So I have with me some devotees because this is going to be a 1 hour long class. Even though I have tried to make it as simple as possible, but I believe there could be some areas which could be a bit complex. So I have kept these devotees and I thank them for participating in this lecture. And in between, I would ask for their feedbacks and if they have any questions or doubts, which I would think also would serve the audience to also consolidate to what I'm speaking. So at the outset, namaste, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, from whichever part of the planet you are seeing this program from. At the outset, I would like to express my profound sense of gratitude to Sri Amma Bhagwan Oneness Organization for having given me this opportunity to be able to talk to you on a subject which is very close to my heart since several years, on how the elusive peace we so desperately seek is so closely related to food. In fact, it begins with food, and how the type of food determines the future of this ecosystem as well as the planet. I initially thought I would speak on the intimate relationship of the food to mind and health, but then I thought, let me directly focus on the effects of food to our health, which has got a direct, and how it is related to our surrounding ecosystem and also determines the future survival of this planet. I have derived my talks from various scientific publications, sources on the internet, books, as well as movie documentaries. So at the outset, I would like to make a disclaimer that my talk is not an original talk. Rather, it's been derived from a lot of sources, from books, from scientific publications, from internet, as well as from documentaries. So again, acknowledgements, my immense sense of gratitude to Sri Amma Bhagwan, whose teachings have been the source of me, from my heart, to actually follow and understand and consolidate the teachings, what I'm telling this to you today. My immense sense of gratitude to my parents, who taught me to be a vegetarian right from my birth and taught me about kindness to animals since my birth. And of course, my acknowledgements will not be complete if I do not acknowledge my wife, who cooks delicious vegan dishes, and my daughter, who taught me a lot about vegan food, and of course the multiple sources of published literature which I'll be quoting during my talk. Now, there is a small disclaimer where I would like to put it on record that this talk or this presentation is being made purely on my personal choice, and it is not affiliated to my professional position or to my hospital or any other institute. So again, the disclaimer that the presentation is not original. It based on facts available in public domain from various sources, from internet, scientific publications. So what I have done is I have kind of put all the knowledge together in order to provide you a seamless thought process so that you can understand very nicely and very clearly what I want to tell you today. So Shri Amma Bhagavan has always told us that the food in our plate is a miracle. We don't realize it, but it's actually one of the miracles, because even if we try to think for it for a few minutes, we can see that there are so many people who would have worked hard in order to bring that plate of food on our table. And it is indeed a huge industry which is growing very steadily. And foods historically has been responsible for wars, for forging peace between people, communities, and nations. So we see that whenever there are delegates between two nations or state leaders between two nations meeting, bonding always happens over food. Now, my talk today will have three parts: on how food can make us healthy, on how they can prevent disease, on how they can make us happy. And these are the three verticals I would be concentrating on today. And whenever I finish one vertical or one topic, I would ask the devotees if they are okay, whoever is connected with me, so that then I can progress to another vertical. So please do kindly keep your patience, and also take your pens and notebooks if you want to make some notes. So let's see how food should be healthy for us. Now I will start historically with taking three categories of people who have been some of the fiercest people or human beings who have lived on this planet and are still living. And these includes the early humans who lived in the caves, the gladiators, we all know that they were the most fearsome fighters, and the sportsmen, even today. Now the question is, are the cavemen meat eaters? And this has been a question which most of the scientists thought that most of the cavemen actually ate meat. But surprisingly, it is not so. And the misconception arose because most of the archaeologists in 1930s discovered bones of animals as well as tools, and they assumed that these cavemen have killed animal bones. But the fact is, most of the plants which decay very fast could not be examined at that point of time. But when technology evolved, we were able to examine the microplant fossils, and it revealed that most of the early humans actually ate plant-based diet. And this has been well established in very prestigious scientific papers. So if you see these papers, it clearly shows us that all the early human ancestors were predominantly vegetarian. Now let's go to these were some of the fearsome warriors to have ever lived on this planet, because their survival depended upon their strength, and most of the gladiators used to die on hand-to-hand combat within the arenas during the Roman Empire. And now there is a place in Turkey called Ephesus, which happens to be a gladiator graveyard where a lot of gladiators have been buried. And here examination of 68 gladiators and examination of over 5,000 bones have shown that these bones indeed have high bone density and strength, and they also have high levels of strontium, and this suggested that the gladiators were kept predominantly on a vegetarian diet. So strontium is a chemical or a element. If it is high, if it is high levels in bones, it indicates that these people are vegetarian. And this has been again published in various reputed scientific journals. And in fact, they were on a diet consisting of diet and barley and beans, diet of barley and beans, and they used to take plant ash or bone ash for calcium sources. That's the only perhaps animal source they used to have, but mostly they were on a vegetarian diet. Now let's look at sportsmen. Now whenever we think of sportsmen, we conjure an image that most of the sportsmen are meat eaters. They eat a lot of meat in order to keep them strong, in order for them to have a lot of stamina. But in 1908, what happened was, there was a British athlete called Emil Watt who won the 5-mile event, and he stunned everybody because he was a complete vegan. And people were stunned by the fact that him, being a wiry vegetarian from Manchester, was able to win the athletics, and he was the first British athlete to have won the athletics heritage plaque. And then some years later, we had Pavo, who won about 9 gold medals and 22 world records. He was a complete vegan. And then Murray Rose from Australia, who was also vegan. And more recently, we have so many of the athletes like Edwin Moses, Carl Lewis, Morgan Mitchell. And she says that my energy level increases and stamina increases immensely when I turned vegan. And similarly, the 8-time US cycling champion who says that her stamina increased like anything when she became a vegan, and she practically became like a machine. Now let us go to some big people. We have been speaking about people who are wiry and thin, have a lot of stamina, but is it possible for one to develop huge bulk of muscles eating vegan food, which is a misconception many people have. People think that eating vegan, you just cannot develop muscles. So look at these examples. Kendrick Harris, the only weightlifter to represent US in 2012 and 16 Olympics. And he was a pure vegan. Patrick Baumann, he's said to be one of the strongest people on the planet. He is a complete vegan. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, the well-reputed Hollywood actor who has acted in so many movies and was ex-governor of California, has turned now into 99% vegan. And these are the examples of several other athletes, not several, I would say several other people who have developed such muscles who are again vegan. And you go on the internet, the examples are limitless. You'll find so many people, so many sportsmen who have turned vegan. And in India, our very own Virat Kohli and Sunil Chhetri are complete vegan. So the question is, who said that meat is healthy? Where did that concept start, that eating meat produces muscles, produces stamina, allows one to become very strong? Where did that concept start from? So interestingly, if you look back in 1800, Justus von Liebig from Britain, he is said to be the father of the modern agriculture. He said that vegetarians theoretically are incapable of prolonged exercise, and I don't know on what basis, it was just an assumption. And he suggested that muscular energy came from meat. And based on this, he created his own Liebig's extract of meat, which was a company. And in order to promote this meat extract, he created a lot of things like table cards, menu cards, children games, card sets, calendars, posters, and this would be put in various hotels in order to encourage this meat extract. And the meat extract became so popular that practically everyone was eating it at that point of time in Britain. And in fact, if you look at the food pyramid, which is recommended by the USDA, where you see all the food items and then you also find the meat in one corner of the food pyramid. This addition of this meat item over there was based on Liebig's idea. And the USA recommended meat based on the Liebig's idea, which again, came from just an assumption. But later on, it has been clearly shown that Liebig's meat extract contained virtually no trace of any kind of nutrients. It does not have fats, gelatin, proteins. In fact, it was completely useless. But at one point of time, during the influenza pandemic, during the bubonic plague, people used to think that unless they eat this meat extract, they would not get all right. And later on, it has been shown that most of the theories, what Liebig proposed, was false. And today we know that muscular energy does not come from meat. It comes from carbohydrates. So basically, carbohydrates are converted into glycogen and they provide us muscular energy. So people who eat a plant-based diet are able to ingest more of carbohydrates and they end up having more of stamina, more of muscular energy, paradoxically. And this is a misconception. People who eat fundamentally animal-based diet eat more of proteins and less of carbs. So as a result, they have loss of energy, loss of stamina and fatigue. And this has been shown in paper after paper. If you go into the PubMed, you'll find paper after paper showing this fact. But unfortunately, the concept that Liebig introduced, that meat is very good, it provides muscular energy, it enhances your muscles, it makes a man out of you, stuck in the minds of people. And then the meat industry grew by leaps and bounds, and you have these advertisements like one should eat like a man, not like a rabbit. And then it showed this women who are athletic, the families eating meat. And again, advertisement showing that you should eat like a man. And again, advertisement showing soldiers eating meat. So this concept unfortunately stuck. So people, it went into the subconscious, or it went into the mindset of the people that one has to consume meat in order to remain healthy. Now the question is, how healthy is meat? Is it really healthy? Now let's understand one fundamental basis. All proteins, whether it is ingested by these poultry animals or ingested by us, comes ultimately from plants. We do not make proteins. All the proteins ultimately come from plants. So when these animals eat the plants, they become the middlemen, and we eat these animals and then we derive proteins from them. In fact, scientific studies have shown that if people eat a well-balanced plant-based diet, they get 70% more than average proteins than the meat eaters. Now let's look at the hard statistics or hard calculations. If one eats 1 cup of cooked lentils, if one eats 1 cup of cooked lentils or 1 peanut butter sandwich, this is equivalent in its protein content to 3 ounces of beef or 3 eggs. So if you eat 1 cup of cooked lentils, it's equivalent to 3 cups of 3 eggs. But again, people say that the quality of proteins coming from animal-based diet is inferior. It is not as good as animal-based proteins. Now, if you break down the structure of proteins, so basically protein consists of building blocks called amino acids. And then the protein, they have a primary structure, they have a secondary structure, and then they unfold again to form this kind of very complex structures. But fundamentally, the protein consists of amino acids. Now, there are 2 types of amino acids. One is non-essential, which can be made in the body, and essential amino acids. These are the 9 essential amino acids, which one has to take from an external source. The reason being that they are not manufactured within the body. Now, people have a misconception that plant-based diet do not have a complete set of essential amino acids. But it's been shown by publication after publication that by eating a diverse diet of vegetables, grains and legumes, you can easily complete your entire set of essential amino acids. Now look at the foodstuffs which are rich in essential amino acids. You have spirulina, you have oatmeal, you have beans, you have chia seeds, broccoli, quinoa, nuts, hemp seeds, nut butter. So if you eat a healthy combination of all this, you will be able to get a complete source of essential amino acids for yourself. Now, what about the quality of animal proteins? People think that eating animal proteins is again, very strong. Why should we eat plant? We are getting ready-made animal proteins. Now, let's look at the baggage with which the animal proteins come. So we have plants and the animals consume these proteins. Now, every animal has to consume 6 times the amount of plant proteins in order to give us 1 time the amount of protein to human beings. So the ratio is 6 times. So it's a highly ineffective mechanism. And with each animal-based diet, we are wasting 25 liters of water. So bottom line is, if we eat animal-based diet, we are actually utilizing a very poor broker or a middleman. It's like you want to buy a house. So the builder is selling it for 1 CR. And then you are contacting a middleman and he says it's 3 CR. And then you're giving so much of money and buying from the middleman. And not only that, when you are using the animal proteins, they come with a baggage of toxins. They come with a baggage of carcinogens, which can produce cancers. They come with the baggage of unhealthy fats. So it's like buying a house. Yes, I heard somebody speak. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So if we consume animals, they give us a baggage of toxins, carcinogen and unhealthy fats which leads us to diseases. And this I will be speaking to you a few minutes from now. So animals are basically poor middlemen. It's not only that you're buying the house at a much expensive rate, but you're buying a house which has been completely dilapidated rather than buying a brand new house from the builder themselves. Now let us look at comparison at the structure, at the molecular structure between plant proteins and animal proteins. And look at the bad baggage with which the animal proteins come from. They come with substances like endotoxins. They can block the blood vessels, which leads to heart problems, can lead to strokes, can lead to loss of stamina, loss of muscle power. They come with a substance called TMAO. The TMAO is a highly toxic substance which destroys the friendly gut bacteria which we have within our intestine and replaces it with the toxic bacteria. So nowadays people think that the gut microbiome, which are the healthy bacteria living in our gut, is practically responsible for all types of diseases. So there is an alteration of the gut bacteria, it can lead us to various types of diseases. And when we eat animal-based diet, there are toxins inside it like TMAO, which replace the friendly bacteria with toxin-producing bacteria. Animals come with a huge amount of heterocyclic amines, which are potent carcinogens. They can cause cancers. They come with heme iron, which are again inflammatory material. They destroy, by inflammation I mean that they destroy the body. Now TMAO, like I was saying, is a highly potent inflammatory substance, and moment one eats meat or an animal based diet, they go into the gut, it causes severe inflammation, and then it destroys the normal or the friendly gut bacteria, and they are replaced by bacteria which are producing toxic substances. And an alteration of gut bacteria is said to be the basis of causing most of the diseases as of now. The gut microbiome theory nowadays is said to cause almost all diseases. People are now starting to think that an alteration of gut bacteria can cause various diseases. Now this is a very interesting paper. So here they have taken some healthy volunteers and they have fed them an hamburger. So hamburger is, it's a burger which is filled with a cow meat or ham. And then they found that with a single ingestion of hamburger, everybody's triglycerides shot up with a single ingestion. I'm not talking of taking hamburgers for weeks to months to years. I'm talking of ingestion of one single ingestion of hamburger. There was an increase in the levels of triglycerides, and triglycerides increase can lead to heart problems, can lead to strokes, and it also led to increase of inflammatory markers called IL-6. IL-6 is the same inflammatory markers which increases in COVID infection. Not just COVID, any infection which happens in the body, these inflammatory markers, they increase. So ingestion of a single hamburger has led to increase of IL-6 and triglycerides. And this was shown in very nice paper published in a high impact factor journal. They have shown ingesting one hamburger has increased inflammation by 70%. What happens when the inflammation increases? When inflammation increases, there is a destruction of the body, and immediately it reflects with joint pains, with soreness, with osteoarthritis, joint problems. And ingestion of one hamburger reduces the endothelial function by 30%. What is endothelium? Endothelium is the inner lining of the blood vessels. So when there is a loss of inner lining of the blood vessels, it leads to narrowing of the blood vessels, and that can lead to heart problems, it can lead to heart attacks, it can lead to strokes, and so many other problems. And in the muscles, especially for athletes, there is endothelial dysfunction. You can have severe exhaustion, loss of stamina, muscle pains. That is why when people eat predominantly animal-based diet, they may develop a muscle mass, but over a period of time, they have severe loss of stamina because of endothelial dysfunction. And it's been shown, I'm not talking from my own imagination, there are n number of publications to demonstrate this. In contrast, plant proteins come with a bunch of antioxidants, phytochemicals, minerals, and vitamins. What are antioxidants? So one has to understand that every time there is a disease and when cells die within our body, there are released something called as free radicals. And these free radicals are extremely toxic substances. In fact, free radicals are also been implicated for aging process. They say that there is a release of free radicals and this actually leads to aging process. So if you eat plant-based diets, they have a counter substance called antioxidants, which can very nicely neutralize these free radicals. So they will heal and fight inflammation. They will optimize the gut microbiome. They will enhance the regeneration of friendly gut bacteria. They will improve the blood supply. And most of the antioxidants are from a plant-based diet. So these are the foods which are rich in antioxidants, and these are the foods which have also been suggested to be taken during COVID because they enhance immunity, and they also provide a lot of antioxidants which are also necessary to fight COVID. So even in COVID, the cytokine reaction which happens is because of release of free radicals. And if you need to fight them, you need to take foods which are rich in antioxidants. And if you consume this food, it will heal you, it will increase your stamina, and it will even slow down your aging. And in the same study, they have shown that by replacing the hamburger with an avocado, there was a 70% reversal of inflammation in 1 week. I'm not talking of days, weeks, and months or years. I'm talking of 1 week finding. There was a reversal of inflammation by 70%, and again, endothelial dysfunction has reduced by almost 30% in week 3. And there are n number of scientific publications which have shown this, refuted this fact. So what are the myths which need to be busted? The first myth is you don't need to consume every essential amino acid with every plant-based diet. If you eat a proper mix of healthy plant-based diet, you will be able to get all the essential amino acids for your diet. Animal proteins are not of higher quality. In fact, they come with a very bad baggage of toxins, with carcinogens, with cancer-producing substances, and there is something else called as insulin like growth factor, which is called as IGF-1. Now, there is a hypothesis that there are dormant cancer cells in all of us. So there is a hypothesis that all of us have cancer cells, but they're sleeping. That is what is meant by dormant. And once they are exposed to this insulin like growth factor, there is a sudden activity of cancer cells. And this has been shown in laboratory conditions. So in laboratory conditions, they have taken these petri dishes, they have put cancer cells there, sleeping cancer cells or dormant cancer cells there, and they have exposed it to insulin like growth factor, and then they suddenly found that there was an enhanced activity of the cancer cells, and they start multiplying very fast. So animals have been, at least on experimental settings, they have been shown that the IGF-1 which is there in animal diet can trigger off the sleeping cancer cells to convert them into active cancer cells. Excuse me. So a whole food based on containing all essential amino acids more than enough for you. There is another misconception that only vegans need supplements. Now the bottom line is everybody needs supplements nowadays because we are eating super washed foods. We're eating foods which have been completely washed of all the nutrients, and I'll talk about it a bit later. There is also another misconception that vegans need dairy milk to get calcium. And those advertisements literally got you. So one has to understand that green leafy vegetables, tofu, have better calcium than dairy milk. So look at the calcium-rich plant diets. So you can eat collard greens, broccoli, kale, oranges, soya, bok choy, figs. These are highly nutritious in calcium. And then there is another concern regarding vitamin D. So as you know, vitamin D is an essential supplement which we require, and it is made in sunlight. But now vitamin D is deficient in most of us because all of us are restricting our outdoor activities. We no more go out. In India, even though we get a lot of sunlight, but unfortunately we are now sitting behind the computers in air-conditioned rooms. And that's the reason why most of the Indians are deficient in vitamin D. So a deficiency of vitamin D can lead to weak bones. Not only weak bones, they can also precipitate malignancy. And if you look at sources of vitamin D, you have mushrooms. Mushrooms are also rich sources of selenium. And then you have fortified soya milk or fortified almond milk or fortified orange juice. And of course, do not hesitate to have plenty of sunshine. If you take plenty of sunshine, it will definitely build up your vitamin D. And do not hesitate to take external supplements because they're easily available. Now come to the question of vitamin B12. People say that why do vegans have low level of vitamin B12? Now this is a missing piece of puzzle. So what you have to understand is that vitamin B12 is neither produced by plants or neither it is produced by animals. They are produced by certain bacteria around the roots of plants. Now, in the earlier days when people used to consume vegetables, they wouldn't wash it so much, and as a result, we would consume those bacteria, and as a result, we would have enough vitamin B12. But nowadays, because of the use of herbicides, because of the use of pesticides, all the vegetables are superwashed. So as a result, all this bacteria containing vitamin B12 are killed. So as a result, we do not have enough vitamin B12 supplements. And this can be easily fulfilled by taking vitamin B12 supplements. And again, I have found that these are the rich plant sources of vitamin B12, what I mentioned here. So I have now finished the first part where I have spoken on how you should stay healthy. So in summarizing, if you take plant-based diet, they come with a baggage which is very good. They have antioxidants, they have minerals, they have phytochemicals, and you are ingesting the proteins directly from nature. Whereas if you are ingesting animal-based proteins, you are ingesting proteins which is absolutely ineffective, because a plant needs to eat 6 times the amount of protein in order for you to get 1 time the protein from the plant. And animal-based diet comes with a baggage of endotoxins, with the heterocyclic amines, which are carcinogens. And they come with inflammatory markers. They come with substances which can actually convert your sleeping cancer cells in your body into active cancer cells. And they can lead to destruction of your blood vessels, which can again lead to heart problems, which can lead to strokes, which can lead to loss of stamina of muscle weakness, and so many other problems. So this is what we have covered in the first part. So before I go to the second part, I would like to ask some people who are connected with me whether the first part has been clear for them, or they would like to ask a couple of questions. And again, these questions reiterate or consolidate the knowledge of the entire audience who are watching this presentation. So am I clear here, Amit ji?
Yes, sir. Saraji, it was very, very clear to me. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So I assume it's been clear to others also, and let's proceed on to the next part. We need to eat food in order to prevent disease. But are we achieving that goal as of today? And here I'm providing a list of all the animal-based diet, and let's examine each one of them. Now, a decade ago, it became very well known that eating processed meat increases the risk of colonic cancer by 20%, which means out of 5 people consuming processed meat, 1 person will go ahead to develop colonic cancer. And you don't have to eat a lot of meat. Just taking 50 grams of processed meat increases the risk of colorectal cancer by 20%. And this has been proven without doubt by several scientific publications. To the extent that WHO has categorized processed meat in the same league as rest of the carcinogens like tobacco smoking and asbestos. You can look up on the website of WHO. They have kept processed meat in the same league as tobacco smoking and asbestos in terms of causing cancer, which means that every time you serve your child processed meat, I think it would be healthier to serve the child cigarettes rather than processed meat. Or every time somebody is eating taco hamburgers, basically it means that you are eating burgers which have cigars within them. Now let's look at another problem, obesity and diabetes. A developed country like US has 2/3 of the population completely obese. There are 450 million people worldwide with diabetes. And it is estimated that in 25 years, 1 out of every 3 person will have diabetes. Can you fathom that? Can you comprehend this? 1 out of every 3 person will be on insulin, will have diabetes. Now, what causes diabetes? There has been a long misconception that diabetes is caused by high sugary foods or by eating carbohydrates. It's true that carbohydrates or sugary foods may aggravate diabetes. But the diabetes is precipitated not by sugary foods, it's precipitated by eating fat, typically a meat-based diet. And for those of you who want to read more about it, I will suggest that you can read this book by Dr. Neil Bernard, Program for Reversing Diabetes, where he speaks that how diabetes is produced by eating a typical fat-based meal typically is derived from meat. And there have been very reputable large scientific studies like the EPIC Interact study, which has shown that one can reduce the incidence of type 2 diabetes by substituting red and processed meat with other protein sources like yogurt, nuts, or cereals. So once you stop eating processed meat, the incidence of diabetes comes down. And there have been many other studies to show that red and processed meat increase the risk of coronary heart disease, which is a heart disease, or type 2 diabetes. And these are all published and well accepted scientific publications. In fact, there is one paper which says that one serving of processed meat every day increases the risk of diabetes by 50%. Just one serving of processed meat. So if you look at processed meat, not only it causes cancers in 1/5 of the people, and it's recognized by WHO, but it releases toxins in the gut. It gets deposited in the blood vessels, like I've told you earlier, and leads to a host of problems like dementia, loss of memory, strokes, heart attacks, and diabetes. Then people say, okay, red meat is bad. Let's talk about white meat. So this chicken is white meat. Why can't we eat? Because white meat is healthy. And again, this is a misconception which has been generated by false advertising. You have to understand that all the processed chicken, there is large quantity of sodium injected into it. In fact, each chicken has about 800 milligrams of sodium injected inside it. And ingestion of sodium can lead to a lot of diseases, including blood pressure. And all the fast food outlets have chicken loaded with heterocyclic amines. And this is a potent carcinogen. It causes cancer and it doesn't get destroyed whether you heat it or you cook it. And it's from chicken. And look at the scientific literature. People who are ingesting heterocyclic amines have a 4-fold increase of prostate cancers. And chicken is loaded with cholesterol. What does cholesterol know? Does everybody, one of us, each and every one of us knows. It's bad for the heart, it's bad for the brain. And not to say, our Indian preparations have 10 times more oil and butter in our non-vegetarian preparations. So unless our preparations are literally floating in oil and butter, we cannot digest or we cannot eat our non-vegetarian preparations. So it's only left to your imagination of the kind of havoc and damage it produces on the body. People again say that, in my family nobody's had an heart attack, so I will not have, my genes are very strong. Yes, genetics could play a role, but you have to understand the most important triggering factor are environmental factors. And in the environmental factor, food is the most important triggering factor for a disease. Now let's look at eggs. Some time ago, the egg industry went on promoting eggs, saying that eggs are very healthy. Now, if you look at the yolk of the egg, which is a yellow portion of the egg, it's nothing but a concentrate of cholesterol and saturated fat. Now, all of us know what cholesterol does to our heart as well as to the brain. But then people say that saturated fats are okay now. There are so many publications saying saturated fats are okay. But you have to understand, it's not just saturated fat. You are taking this fat with a baggage of toxic substances, what I mentioned earlier, like endotoxins, TMAO, heterocyclic amines, heme iron, which produce a lot of inflammation, can precipitate cancer and can cause heart disease and can cause strokes. And surprisingly, if you look at papers which say that saturated fats are okay, I've gone through a lot of them. They are supported by the very organizations against whom we are saying that they should not be consumed. For instance, this paper which says that this study has shown that saturated fats are okay and is supported by whom? By the National Dairy Council. Similarly, there is another paper which is funded by the Egg Board and Egg Nutrition Center. So the very industry against whom we are trying to find out that whether these foods are good or bad is actually supporting the scientific papers. It's like asking the tobacco industry to let us know the benefits of smoking. They will always say that smoking is, have their way, they will always say that smoking is healthy for your health. And that is what was happening in 1940s, and I will tell you about it in a few minutes from now. Now let's come to cow's milk. I think as a country, we are obsessed with cow's milk. Our mothers will not let our children sleep at night unless they have given a full glass of cow's milk. And cow's milk is an occasion we have to drink 4 or 5 teas, which is filled with milk, sugar, and unless we consume teas or coffees like that, we are not happy. But the fact is, cow's milk is for the calf. It's not for humans. Humans is the only animal on this planet which drinks milk from another animal. And how cheesy and how freaky is that? And how pervert is that? No other animal on this planet drinks the milk of another baby. And it's not surprising when you're ingesting proteins of another animal. It leads to problems like acne, eczema, constipation. A lot of people have allergic reactions against cow milk, but they don't realize it. They don't think that it is because of cow's milk, and they keep on drinking cow's milk. Now, cow's milk is fundamentally for the calf. If you look at growth of calf, a calf has 90% of body growth in 1 year. Whereas a human baby has 90% development of the brain in 1 year. So human milk is customized for human baby because it leads to optimal development of brain in 90%. So you see a human baby after 1 year, it's almost the same size, but the brain has developed by 90%. In contrast to a calf develops 90% of the body growth, but hardly any brain growth. And that's the reason cow's milk is one of the most allergenic food on this planet. 40 to 60% of the people are lactose intolerant in this globe. People do not realize it, but year after year, day after day, they keep on drinking milk. And not only that, the milk is packed with hormones like estrogen and progesterone, and that plays havoc on your body. In addition, the milk has something called as caseins. And this caseins is converted into caseomorphins. And this caseomorphin latch on to exactly those receptors or those substances in human body to which opioid substances like morphine or nicotine or even marijuana or even cocaine latches onto. In the sense that more and more milk you consume, you develop a kind of addiction because the casein present in the milk is being converted into caseomorphin, and that has an addictive quality. Most of the milk from cow is filled with pus. Even the USDA have said that it is all right to have 750,000 pus cells per cc of milk. That is what the USDA has said for a developed country like United States. Most of the cows from whom we are deriving milk are sick. They have mastitis, they have abscesses, and they are actually excreting pus. Cheese is actually coagulated cow pus. Can you imagine that? You have pus, you have an injury and it forms a pus. You are actually coagulating and eating that. Milk is packed with hormones like estrogen and progesterone, and again this can play havoc in your body and again can lead to various cancers. So this study shows that milk can play havoc on your body and it reduces your own testosterone and estrogen, and again that leads to infertility. It leads to an inability for you to conceive a child. I don't know, for some reason, for some weird reason, people drink a glass of milk on the day of marriage, but it acts on the reverse manner. You drink milk, it actually reduces your testosterone and estrogen levels. And in addition, it increases your cortisol levels. Cortisol levels are stress hormones. So they will reduce the muscle mass and they will make you feel more, anxiety. They will produce more anxiety. And eating a plant-based diet has shown that it reduces cortisol in your body in a matter of 3 to 4 days. Just 3 to 4 days of consuming plant diet can reverse the effect of cortisol, which is derived from milk and animal-based diet. Now, interestingly, there is a condition called as sarcopenia. Many of you would not have heard about it, but it's a very interesting condition. It's a condition where people, as they age, they develop extreme amount of muscle loss, muscle atrophy, and baggy skin. So you would have seen some individuals who by the age of 60, 70 would look almost like 80 years of age because there is a severe atrophy of muscles. So muscles are completely lost and they have this baggy skin. So by the time they're 65, they look as if they're 90 years old. This condition medically is called as sarcopenia. So it's a extreme loss of muscle mass. It's a disproportionate loss of muscle mass. You see some people, even if they're 80 years, they look absolutely young. They don't have so much of wrinkles or loss of muscle mass or sagging of skin. So sarcopenia has been shown to be very much linked to an animal-based diet. People who eat an animal-based diet will age faster, and by 60 or 70 years of age, they will look like somebody who is 80 or 90 years of age. And there are many papers which have been published. For instance, casein getting converted to casomorphin in the milk has been shown to be related to autism. So the high incidence of autism in developed countries has been shown to because of ingestion of high amounts of cow's milk, and even schizophrenia. It has been shown that casomorphin is responsible for schizophrenia and mental disorders. And these are scientific papers which are speaking. And cheese definitely is unhealthy because it contains high amount of fat, cholesterol, sodium. It can precipitate heart diseases, diabetes, Alzheimer's. And in addition, it's addictive because cheese is converted into casomorphins in your body. Now let's come to fishes. People think, excuse me. So people think fishes are healthy. Okay. They could be healthy by their own. But the fact is, most of our fishes as of now are loaded with a highly toxic, carcinogenic, cancer-producing substance called as methyl mercury. So most of the fishes have high levels of mercury. Every fish has mercury. There are fishes which have low levels of mercury. There are fishes which have high levels of mercury. But the bottom line is that fishes are loaded with mercury. And in fact, if you take fishes from Indian rivers, not only they have high levels of mercury, but they also have this herbicides, pesticides, factory effluents. And there are villages down West Bengal where they have a high incidence of cancer because they predominantly live on fish diet, which are fished out of this highly polluted rivers, and they're loaded with mercury, pesticides, and herbicides. And then people think that fishes are low in cholesterol. Maybe some kind of fishes like tuna, but there are other fishes which has much more cholesterol than a pork chop or even an egg or a chicken. So fishes are unhealthy because they have high levels of toxins like mercury, pesticides, and herbicides. Farm fishes are no better because they're fed again with antibiotics and antifungal drugs, and you're again ingesting them. And there are so many publications which have shown the bad effect or the deleterious effects of methyl mercury. It can cause breast cancer, it can cause dementias or cognitive deficits, and so many other problems. And now, let us come to the final catch, which is the effect of environmental pollution on meat and dairy products. Now, most of the factories in their smoke, they produce a substance called as a dioxin. And this is hardly talked about, but if you look in the literature, it's very well mentioned. Dioxin is the most toxic man-made substance on this planet. And it can cause all kinds of cancers in the body, all kinds of cancers. If a person breathes factory air, he will perhaps take 14 years to have dioxin levels in their body. But if he eats an animal-based diet like poultry, like cow or a sheep or a chicken, or even milk and dairy products, he is going to, in a very short period of time, his body is going to get loaded with dioxins. And why does this happen? Because the cows eat grass which is not washed. It is loaded with dioxin. The sheep eat grass because it is again loaded with the dioxin. We wash our vegetables, but the cows, we don't wash the vegetables and give it to cows. And this dioxin goes and gets deposited within the poultry. And you have to understand, once you have dioxin in your body, there is no way you can excrete the dioxin. It's there permanently in your body. It will stay in your body till it produces cancer. The only way that a lady could remove some of the dioxins from her body is through childbirth, where a lot of dioxins will go along with the child, or through breastfeeding. There is no other way for a man to remove dioxins from his or her body, from his body. And you have to understand, eating poultry products, eating meat is perhaps the fastest way to get dioxin toxicity, because we do not wash the vegetables or the grass which we feed to the animals. And there are a host of other diseases which are associated called as zoonotic diseases. I will not mention them, but I will definitely talk about brucellosis, which was an epidemic recently. It can cause flu-like symptoms, fever, weakness, malaise, very similar to COVID. It had come out in newspapers. And we are very well aware about the swine influenza virus and COVID-19 through which we are going. Again, it has been a jump from bats. I will not complete my talk without telling you something about prion diseases, because this is something which people rarely know or understand. And it has a very interesting story. So excuse me and let me sip some water. Now in an island of Papua New Guinea, there were a group of tribals who used to have this strange disease where they would have this wasting of muscles, they would lose their memory, they would become bedridden, they will become double incontinent, which means that they're passing both stools and urines on the bed, and then they would die. And they would get the disease by the time they were just 10 or 15 years of age. And this tribe was known, and this disease was called as Kuru. And then this scientist called Dr. Gadusek, he got a Nobel Prize for this. He went and spent several years with these tribal people. And then he found a strange custom that these tribal people had. He found that these tribal people, whenever one of the relatives used to die, they used to break open his skull or her skull and eat the raw brain material as a mark of respect towards their dead relative. That was their custom. And they have been doing it for years. So Dr. Gadusek proposed that there is some kind of an infectious particle which is being transmitted through eating of the dead relatives' meat, especially the brain, which is causing them this kind of problem. And once this person dies, if you open the brain and see, you find that the whole brain looks like a sponge. That is why it's called a spongiform encephalopathy. And it is transmitted by a kind of infectious particle which is called as a slow virus. This virus cannot be killed by heating or by cooking, because it's not an infectious particle, but it goes inside. It is a degree less. Even virus is not a live particle, but this is a degree less than the usual viral infections. And there are a host of these diseases which are now recognized to be prion diseases, and most common is Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. We see such cases maybe about 2 or 3 times a month. We don't know how people get these diseases. But the fact is, this disease is 100% fatal. So if a person gets this disease, there is no way you can improve. There is no treatment. The person will progressively go down. He will lose his memory. He will become bedridden. He will pass urine and stool on the bed and then finally die a miserable death. And these diseases are incurable. They are fatal. Why am I speaking about this? Come back down by another 40 years, you would have heard about the mad cow disease. So mad cow disease was nothing but a prion disease happening in cows. And when they opened up the brains, they found that the whole brains were destroyed. And that's why it was called as bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Bovine stands in Latin for cows. Spongiform because you can see this sponge-like destruction of the brain. Encephalopathy is again a Latin term for some kind of brain disease. And why did this disease happen in cows? It happened in cows because when these cows were butchered, all the residue meat was put in a grinder. They used to create a liquid gruel and they used to feed the other cows before they were being butchered. Can you imagine a more cruel thing happening? Where rather than feeding plants to the cow, you are actually feeding a dead gruel of its relatives, of its butchered relatives. And one of the cows caught the prion disease, and it's called as mad cow because the cow becomes sick, cannot, and because of this, thousands of cows were slaughtered in UK and USA. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because the only way you can diagnose a mad cow disease is if you do the autopsy of the brain. Now, most of the cows which are slaughtered are very sick. Most of the cows have abscesses, and these abscesses are opened up so that the pus comes out before the cows are slaughtered in a very cruel manner. and the milk is sucked out from the cows till they bleed. And when the cows fall sick without any examination, they are just slaughtered. The slaughter speed in countries like USA is about 220 cows an hour, which means there is less than 10 seconds to slaughter a cow. Which again means that if any cow has a mad cow disease, there is no way we would come to know about it. And there has been precedents. There have been 6 cases of mad cow disease which have been reported in USA. The only way you can diagnose this condition is when you do a brain biopsy. Otherwise, you cannot prove that the cow has mad cow disease. But unfortunately, cows are slaughtered faster than that. Cows are slaughtered in most of the cow farms at the rate of 220 cows an hour. So I will end the second part with a very somber thought. I know I have shown some things which could be disturbing for you, but there are several other disturbing things which I have not shown to you. And it suffices for you to understand that when we ingest this animal-based diet, it leads us to a host of diseases which I have shown. It could be cancer, could be autoimmune diseases like lupus, multiple sclerosis, prion diseases, hypertension, sarcopenia, strokes, liver and kidney failure, infections, dementia, so many. The list is absolutely endless. Now I would like to show you this video about this doctor. For some reason the audio is not coming, but you could read the subtitles below and I will read the subtitles. So it says, hello, my name is Dr. Brooke Goldner. I am a board certified physician and I am specialized in diseases reversal using nutrition. And now before I became a doctor, I was actually a patient. I was diagnosed at 16 years with lupus. I had stage 4 kidney failure. I had blood clots that caused many strokes that I had endured for years of chemotherapy, steroids, just to survive. Now I have learned and has never helped me with my health. It was always about survival. I did 3 years of genetic research at Carnegie Mellon. I went to medical school. I was a chief resident and yet I was still needed to take medicine to survive. 12 years I was sick and then 15 years ago I changed my diet to a plant-based diet. I got rid of dairy, no animal products, and within 3 months the lupus was gone. I have been healthy for the past 15 years, no sign of disease. I've had children, I've dedicated my life to this. And over the past decade, I've helped thousands of people reverse lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, diabetes, heart disease, #1 killer by getting them to stop eating meat and dairy and eggs and focus on vegetables and high nutrient plant foods. And the results are consistent and profound. As a doctor, my colleagues can attest to the fact that we are all chasing down an epidemic of disease that we cannot hope to catch up or overtake, because people are getting sicker with every meal they eat. But you can make the difference because people don't know who to trust. The dietary guidelines say that people should be focusing on a plant-based diet full of vegetables, fruits, and they should be eliminating meat and dairy. They will at least have the right for information to start making this. Listen to both. As a doctor, I am desperately trying to save lives, and as a former patient who has almost died many times because I didn't have this information. I beseech you to take this seriously, that this decision of what is recommended to the public about what they should eat and what they should not is what is decided by the industry and not by what is good for human health. People are suffering and dying right now because of lack of this information. So I ask you to seriously take that. I ask you to take that seriously, because the literature is clear and the results we see are true. When you eliminate meat, dairy and eggs, people's health gets better. So please recommend a plant-based diet to encourage people to limit or eliminate animal food so that we can save lives. Please help me with this mission. I appreciate your attention. So this came as WhatsApp forward and it's a very powerful message. So I will go to the final part of my lecture. So before this, again, I will request the people who joined with me whether I have been clear with the second part of my lecture on how to avoid diseases by eating the right kind of food.
Yes, sir.
Have I been clear in my talk?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, clear.
Wonderful. Now I will go to the last part of the talk, saying how to eat the proper food so that we can be healthy. We can be happy. We can be happy only when the ecosystem surrounding us is happy. So is the ecosystem around us healthy? Let's look at that. Now here I will take you to a place called Duplin, North Carolina in United States of America, which is home to one of the biggest pig farms on the planet. It is home to 10 million pigs who were slaughtered for the meat. Now an adult pig produces 8 to 10 times more stools or feces than human beings, which means that this 10 million pigs are producing feces equivalent to 100 million humans. And how is this feces disposed of? Even in a developed country like US, there is no waste treatment. They are mixed into water and they are released directly into the fields, as a result of which most of the people who are living around are miserable and have multiple diseases. And there is a water body pollution and the fishes are dying. And this is a situation I'm speaking about in USA. Now look at the statistics. You are going to be horrified. 79 billion animals are killed for human consumption every year for a human population of 8 billion. Which means we are producing food, or we are consuming food equivalent to 500 million people, because each animal consumes 6 times the plant food which is required for a human being. That's why I multiplied 79 into 6. And this is equivalent to 60 times the present human population. So in effect, by eating animal-based food, we are eating 60 times the amount of food that this planet can provide to us. And what is this leading to? This is leading to cutting off various forests because we need to produce fodder. Severe environmental pollution. I'm not saying this. There are hundreds and hundreds of publications. Meat effluents are going into water bodies. There is complete pollution of the river bodies. Fishes are dying. Now, if you look at the globe like a perpetual motion machine, perpetual motion machine is a concept by physicists who says that it's a machine which can go on forever. So our beautiful planet is like a perpetual motion machine. On the left side, we have living beings like the plant life and the plankton in the sea, which produces oxygen. And they depend on the food derived from animals. On the right side, we have the human, which is the biggest footprint in animals. And then we have the poultry, which again is causing the biggest possible carbon footprint. Now, what is happening? The poultry is eating 6 times the amount of plant sources, and it is consuming all the water, 25 liters for every meal it's consuming. So as a result, the entire perpetual motion machine has become skewed. It's no more equivalent. So the footprint of the plankton in the sea and the plant life is progressively reducing, because most of this is being used by the poultry, which we are using it as a food source. And what could be the possible alternatives as a consequence of this? There are only 2 consequences of this. There is no third consequence. The first consequence is that obviously the whole planet may stop. That could be the end of all. Or we could get eliminated. That's the only way. These are the only 2 options which can happen. If the world was to go on to a plant-based diet today, we would create a green space equivalent to the size of Africa. And that itself is enough to counter the all vehicular traffic and environmental pollution. We don't need to do anything else. So the question is, how do I start? There are people who have been eating meat for years. They just cannot live without meat. But you have to understand that there have been people who have switched over from an animal-based diet to plant-based diet. I think it starts with you. This lecture has to create a big impact with you. And you should create a plan for gradual transition like Arnold Schwarzenegger introduced for people who are eating animal-based diet. I'm not talking about people who are eating only plant-based diet. So he introduced the concept of meatless Mondays. And look at this, what this meatless Monday says. So going meatless on Monday will reduce your heart disease, obesity, risk of cancer, stroke, diabetes. Will save 133 gallons of water, save water. Will save energy, reduce the carbon footprint by 8 pounds. Will reduce a family's grocery budget by $4 by going meatless on Mondays. And if all Americans participated, it would prevent billions of animals going or being farm produced. Develop a habit of taking a healthy mix of vegetable, carbs, and etc. Take adequate supplements like vitamin D3, B12, algae-based omega oils. These are easily available over the counter. Do not hesitate to speak to your friends and family. I see that there are certain interactions where you just cannot speak about vegetarian diet. People will just laugh off this. They say, oh ho ho ho, I do not believe. Oh, wonderful. But it's time that we started speaking about a plant-based diets and its health benefits. Once you start the plant-based diet, you will realize that you love it. You realize that a plant-based diet does wonders for humans, animals, and Mother Earth. Now, why doesn't everybody know about this? Let me take back you by 40 years. Even though the vegan and vegetarian awareness is increasing, but it's not fast enough. But if you look at 1940s, cigarette smoking was actually considered healthy, and you had these advertisements with successful people and very beautiful women drinking, smoking cigarettes, and even children. There was an advertisement saying that the earlier you start, the better, and there were 6-month-old children starting to smoke cigarettes, and this was what was happening in 1940s. And there were advertisements to show that soldiers of Second World War, nurses of Second World War, then sportsmen smoking cigarettes, and then this very famous baseball athlete called Baby Ruth who endorsed a certain type of cigarettes and ultimately died of lung cancer. And then this advertisement showing that athletes relax during the Tokyo Summer Olympics by smoking. And so this went on for a long time. People used to say that smoking is not related to cancer, and then when the statistics came up fit, people fought tooth and nail because the cigarette smoking industry is huge. Look at this thing published in the paper. They say, yes, smoking is related to cancer, but statistics are disputed. And who are the people talking about it? 5 people among this 9, 8 people are smokers, and they have 8 asterisks distributed among them. So you have to understand it took 60 years. And again, there was advertisements of doctors smoking. And then there were articles coming up to say that there is no proof that cigarette smoking causes cancer. Then there was some eminent scientist saying that our brand of cigarettes is as pure as water. It took us 60, not even 60 years, it took us 80 years from 1940 before we have started putting up these pictures on the cigarette packets where we understand that smoking causes cancer. But even then, there are millions of people who still continue to smoke. Can you understand what is the situation for animal-based diet? There is an amount of evidence, huge amount of evidence showing that egg consumption leads to cardiovascular disease. Meat intake is associated with higher death rate, cancers, milk leads to higher mortality, but these are controlled by huge corporates, powerful corporates, and their game is to introduce an element of doubt. So they will publish articles like why all humans need to eat meat for health. And anybody who is addicted to meat will say, oh, okay, there is not enough evidence. Okay, I can still eat meat. Let me eat meat. Because meat is so addictive that once you eat, it's very difficult for people to let go of that. What is happening on our planet? We are eating bad food, animal-based diet filled with fats, carcinogenic. It's leading to sickness. And even in countries like US, they spend 1.5 trillion US dollars on diabetes, cancer, and heart disease. Just this. And if you look at $1.5 trillion, it becomes the 10th richest country in the world. Just the amount of expenditure which is spent on diabetes, cancer, and heart disease makes this industry the 10th richest country in the world. And there is enough fodder or enough material for the media to publish more polarity, more business. And there is a multi-billion-dollar business. But the sad part is, whatever junk we are creating on this planet, it stays on this planet. There is nothing called throwing out of this planet. There is an immediate need to create a green world, because shift of food industry to produce plant-based diet would be the only way for the human beings to survive. Before I end my talk, I would like to say that in this lecture, I have not spoken about the intense cruelty meted out to these poor, helpless creatures being one of the reasons for us to stop eating animal-based diet. I have not spoken about the tortures committed to these hapless creatures so that the food we eat could become a shade tastier. I will not speak about the unspeakable manner in which these creatures are raised before being slaughtered, or how they scream before they face death. No, sir, I will not speak about how calves are slaughtered in front of the mothers as soon as they're born, so that we could relish the tender calf meat. Nor I will speak about animals who suffer from intense sickness, disease, and suffering before they meet their premature, unfortunate ending. But yes, I will definitely say this much, that the very animals we are eating are killing us, and not too slowly. We have a huge chunk of human population who are burdened with diseases like heart elements, atherosclerosis, strokes, obesity, diabetes, just to mention a few. We are just a few years before we can lose a large footprint of our race, succumbing to various illnesses in a matter of years. Because in our own petty thinking, we are failing to see the big picture. In that so-called tasty meal made out of some unfortunate animal, we fail to see how our body is crumbling, collapsing, and degenerating. In that few seconds of momentary greed, in the lifeline of evolution, we are failing to see that the so-called commodity called money, which we have created, could last only as long as we are healthy, and beyond that, it is meaningless. Like Dr. Roberts, editor of American Journal of Cardiology, says, although we think we are and we act as if we were, human beings are not natural carnivores. That is, we have not been built to eat meat. When we kill animals to eat them, they end up killing us, because in their flesh, it contains cholesterol, saturated fat, which was never meant or intended for human beings who are natural herbivores or plant-based eaters. I will conclude by posing this one question. If we could live a happy, healthy life without harming others, why couldn't we? Let's make peace with our food first. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Thank you.
Dasaji, are you online?
Yes, Sharatji. Yes, Sharatji. Thank you so much, Sharatji. Today, I take this
So
opportunity
much.
to thank Dr. SaratChandra ji for the wonderful and illuminating talk about how peace begins with food. Today, after listening to you, we realized that food is essential for bringing peace. On behalf of Oneness, I thank you very much for taking out time from your busy schedule and for the initiative in bringing about an awareness within us, and for opening our eyes and also helping us in this journey of achieving mukti. Thank you so much, SaratChandra ji. Thank you so much. Namaste, SaratChandra ji.
Thank you so much, SaratChandra ji.
Thank you. Namaste, namaste. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Saratji. Thank you so much.
So I will now disconnect with your permission.
Thank you, sir. Also, thank you.
Namaste, Doctor.
Namaste, namaste.